All right, guys. You signed the supervisor paperwork now? Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started on this here. Once again, we're going to come to, there's going to be a few slides that are repeated on this here, so just bear with me a little bit. Once again, understanding why an individual wants to come to work under the influence. I wish I had a good answer for that, but I do not. It's not simple. We do know that people use drug and alcohol for many different reasons on there, but we do know that it's finding its way into our workplaces more and more today. Like I said, on the 47% of U.S. workers that have low energy to participate in non-work activities by the end of the workday. 1/3 of the 1,000 workers that were sampled in this study said it was difficult for them to unwind after work. 2 in 5 workers in the study said they try to avoid tasks that require a high level of concentration or a high level of focus after they're done working there. 38% they miss out on non-work activities due to exhaustion from work on there. 76% of U.S. workers reported experiencing at least one symptom of mental health condition like anxiety or depression. 80% of workers report that workplace stress significantly impacts their mental health. 83% of U.S. workers suffer from work-related stress, with many reporting negative effects on their home life. 74% of employees report experiencing negative mental health while they are at work, leading to that burnout concern, where many workers report symptoms associated with burnout due to workplace stress, including emotional exhaustion, lack of motivation, and a desire to quit. And we do know that negative mental health does impact productivity. Poor mental health can significantly impact productivity, with studies showing potential losses in work performance due to stress and depression on there. So if you have a guy who hasn't slept, he's a threat to everyone's safety. That's why you must rely on your team, and a part of prevention is having your people taking care of themselves. I'm a big advocate for self-care. I stress that. I probably stress it too much sometimes. We have to start taking care of ourselves before we worry about others as well on there, because if we don't, guess what's going to happen to us there? So once again, if stress and pressure becomes too much to handle and affects your mental and physical health, your relationships both at home and at work, or your work quality there. So if you are experiencing any of those symptoms of burnout, anxiety, depression, or other mental health, please seek professional help as soon as possible. You can talk to a doctor, a therapist, counselor, a coach, a trusted person in your life, a positive-minded, positive-framed person on there. And I'm sure you have an EAP, or Employee Assistance Program. That's a free benefit. I would take full advantage of it. It's instead of calling and counseling to try to remove that stigma away from that. Refer to that something like life coach. Life coaching on that there kind of helps set the tone a little better on there. But I strongly recommend that. I'm very fortunate. I got a whole bunch of people in my office. I can go in there. I can sit in their office, close the door, and say, "We're going to talk." And they help me out on that there. So like I said, that's part of self-care that I truly believe in there. So going back with these coping skills, negative coping skills versus positive. Some of the negative ones: drinking or substance use. We start yelling at other people. Maybe we start overeating. Constant criticism of everybody else, including ourselves on there, or that negative self-talk. We can become stubborn and spiteful. It can also lead to other reckless behaviors like spending too much money, gambling. Like I said before, the positive coping skills there. Try to come up with some type of exercise, even if it's getting up, just walk around the block with the dog in the morning, or just going out walking in the yard for a little bit there, just to get the juices flowing there. Try to come up with some creative outlet: drawing, writing, painting, anything that you can do to distract yourself from all the negative and try to put you in a positive frame of mind. Gardening, if you're into that there. I have a black thumb. I cannot grow anything. Everything that has been given to me, I do not seem to be able to keep it alive there. Playing games, whether it's board games with family members. On our phones, we have a whole bunch of different games there. It's funny, I came across a deck of old cards that I had. I don't know how long I've had these cards. I actually played solitaire the other night by myself. It was pretty fun. Uh, Spending time with positive people, like I said, that one there, you cannot beat that one at all. Always make sure you're around positive people if possible. Start writing a gratitude list. Doesn't have to be anything major, like I said. Just anything we're happy that we still have, and we're grateful that we is there. Being flexible and open-minded. Also, setting boundaries and limits. When we set a boundary, that is not telling people, here's not what you're not allowed to do. It's we're telling ourselves, this is what I will not accept. So don't let people cross those boundaries. Make sure that we enforce those boundaries once we set them. So what happens when you turn to unhealthy coping skills like drug and alcohol? We do know it's a short-term escape with possible long-term damage. Drugs and alcohol provide temporary relief, but often worsen emotional pain and create additional physical, mental, or relationship issues. It does inhibit our problem solving. When we're relying on substances, it hinders the ability to face challenges, delaying growth and resolution of that issues. It can lead to a cycle of dependency. Unhealthy coping skills can lead to addiction, increasing vulnerability to stress, and reducing self-control over a period of time. Some of the substance use risks here, we do know that they overactivate certain brain cell receptors, resulting in effects such as altered senses, changes in people's moods, impaired body movement, difficulty with thinking and problem solving. Also, it's impaired memory and our learning abilities there. Some of the physical health risks, especially with respiratory issues. Inhaling certain substances can lead to respiratory problems, such as chronic bronchitis, increased cough and phlegm production. It may also exacerbate asthma and other lung conditions. With the cardiovascular, many drugs can increase heart rate and blood pressure, which might elevate the risk of a heart attack and stroke, especially in individuals with pre-existing heart conditions. And also impaired motor skills. We do know that drugs and alcohol can impair motor coordination and reaction time, increasing the risk of accidents and injuries, including those related to driving. The mental health risks with anxiety and paranoia. Some users may experience heightened anxiety, increased paranoia, or panic attacks, especially at a higher dose. With psychosis in some individuals, and particularly those with a predisposition to mental health conditions, drug use can trigger psychotic episodes, including hallucinations and delusions. And with the depression, while some may use alcohol and drugs to self-medicate for depression, heavy use often worsens depressive symptoms over time. Some of the cognitive and developmental risks associated with it. With memory and learning, substance use can impair short-term memory, attention spans, and learning abilities, which can affect academic and work performance. With the brain development, in adolescents and young adults, substance use can affect brain development, potentially leading to lasting cognitive defects and a lower IQ score. And addiction, while not everyone who uses drugs may become addicted, some individuals may develop substance use disorders characterized by dependency and also withdrawal symptoms on there. The social and behavior risks, impaired judgment. Drug use can impair judgment and decision making, leading to risky behaviors and poor life choices. School and work performance. Regular drug use can negatively impact educational attainment and workplace performance, leading to lower grades and reduced productivity. And also the legal issues that are associated with illegal drug use there. Got to remember with the long-standing effects, it's important to note that the effects of substance use can vary widely between individuals and depends on various factors such as the amount used, frequency of use, method of consumption, and the individual's overall health and genetic predisposition. So if you or someone you know is considering using any substances, including marijuana, or struggling with its use, consulting with a healthcare professional or counselor can provide personalized advice and support. And also the duration of a high can range anywhere from a couple hours to more than 12 hours, depending upon various factors. So for those concerned about the lingering effects of drug use, especially in the context of workplace safety and performance, It's important to understand these variables and how they may impact one's ability to function effectively. So we need to really start changing our perspective that we're trying to catch bad or problematic employees and realize that these programs are literally saving people's lives. And it's also offering pathways to recovery for people that are struggling with some issues there. And just because they are struggling with that, having an issue, some people think they have to be taken out of society for 30, 60, 90 days. That's not always the case. It's a case by case. It's not, recovery pathways are not cookie cutters. It's not like everybody has to do this here. There's other pathways for it. There's, going to outpatient, going to intensive outpatient care. You don't have to be locked up for 30, 60, 90 days. There's other avenues on there. So, like I said, we're going to just pre-employment, pretty self-explanatory. Person has to have a negative drug test before they come to work. So if a person's going to go to there and they're under the influence, not an employee we want to have anyhow, in my opinion at least. Then we have the randoms. Those are unannounced. They're spread reasonably throughout the course of the year. Usually every 3 months, we get a phone call, or we schedule, I should say. Those are covered by, or the drug tests, who's being chosen for the drug test is not chosen by the city. That's a third-party independent company like On Demand. We do yours. Also, the follow-up return to duty, like I said, is not for people who've been off the job for any type of reason for a leave there. They're put in place for an individual who failed a drug screen previously and is returning to work after the assessment and also follow-up treatment. Then you have the follow-ups. They're put in place after an employee returns to job following the return to duty. So that's going to be a set amount of drug tests are going to be randomly administered over the course of the next 12 months. For DOT, it's actually could go up to 5 years for DOT. That's just to make sure people are staying compliant with that. So OSHA rules there. OSHA says you're still able to test for accidents that could have been a result of use on the job. There was something came out and everybody got that all confused. You're still able to test for accidents that could have been a result of drug use or contributed to the accident there. Every drug or post-accident drug test, you have 32 hours to get the drug test done. You only have 8 hours for the breath alcohol test to be administered. So if anything happens, get us rolling as quick as possible on that there. Also, for post-accident drug testing there, the reason to request one, there's a human fatality. Try to get everybody that's involved in that scenario or that situation, get them all tested. It's not a rule, but it is best practice. Good practice to do that. That way, you have more evidence than not enough, I should say. If they have to go off-site for any medical attention that is needed, whether it's stitches, bandages, whatever, it doesn't matter. If they have to go off-site, they have to have drug tests done. And if there's property damage in excess of $500 on there, or if a supervisor feels that drugs or alcohol did contribute to that accident, make sure you document that down there and have them tested also. So, your roles, rights, and responsibilities as supervisors with reasonable suspicion testing. Number one, it's used to detect the signs and symptoms of drug or alcohol use. It's a key requirement for all federal DOT as well as non-DOT drug testing programs that are available. It's been adopted as an industry best practice in non-regulated testing programs like OSHA, general duty clauses. Also, increased importance with the emergence of legal marijuana laws to have that in there. If anybody needs anything, we have a very good, top quality person with that there. She should have been a lawyer, but she's not. And it's also increased importance as a result of the pandemic when adults started self-medicating back in 2020. Unfortunately, they have not realized it's been 2025 now, and they are still self-medicating on there. So, with reasonable suspicion testing, it can be utilized when there's more than just a hunch. We're going to look for the obvious signs of intoxication or them being under the influence, such as impaired speech, difficulty concentrating. They may have trouble when they're walking, strong odors of alcohol or marijuana, nodding off, and there's many others. We want to watch for patterns of behavior and changes in people's moods, hygiene, temperament, increased frequent breaks, increased absenteeism. So the most important rules in any reasonable suspicion drug testing, please make sure you document the heck out of it. There's no such thing as too much documentation. The more documentation you have, the better it is for you. It also makes you very transparent with the more documentation you have. So even though you as a supervisor are not expected to, nor should you try to determine the exact drug that an employee is using, you should be able to recognize the common ones, which are the physical, behavior, speech, and performance, and odor signs and symptoms that are associated with the physical appearance of, and also the paraphernalia used to administer each of the prohibited drugs. This not only helps you make a reasonable suspicion determination, but it also adds credence to your assessment on there. So, yeah, it's pretty hard for an employer to address reasonable suspicions with somebody. Some people don't like confrontation. Some people are afraid of retaliation. Maybe they have a personal relationship, or they're on the same bowling league or whatever with that person. They just don't want to make waves, so they want to bury their head in the sand, hope somebody else takes care of it there. So if they do get put in that spot, a lot of times they'll call us up and say, hey, we want you to do it under random or other. We strongly suggest no on that one there, and recommend that you've got to realize in your company policy, it says you have the right to test for reasonable suspicion, number one. So use that clause in there and let the chips fall where they may on there. And two, you want to bring awareness to that person. We suspect you. A lot of people, at least in my experience dealing with, because I've been working in rehab for many, many years. Since I was a little kid, I've been around addiction my whole life. People that are under the influence, they usually think that nobody knows or nobody's aware of it there. So we want to make sure that they are aware of it on there. Like I said, it's written in your policy. You can test for reasonable suspicion on there. So we got to realize that sometimes it's pretty obvious when an employee shows up under the influence. They're slurring words, they're stumbling when they walk, they may be even sluggish or incoherent. But often signs and symptoms are often less dramatic, but our gut still tells us something's wrong. I don't know about you guys, but when my gut tells me something's wrong, 99.9% of the time, it is spot on there. We call that the definition of a hunch. We say do not ignore it. Start to explore that hunch that you have on there. And as a supervisor, you cannot test whomever you want, whenever you want, without exposing your company to some potential liability. But when you're faced with an employee whose behavior and appearance lead you to suspect they are impaired on the job, you must articulate and document first-hand observations to warrant the need for a reasonable suspicion test. These observations must be right before, during, or right after job functions or contextual areas. Best practice is to involve another supervisor to observe the employee and further document their observations. It's not required, but that is best practice. So you're going to have two independent observations going on. The two supervisors are going to come together and collaborate on that there. And if you check the same boxes on there, then you know you're good on that. Plus it also helps with your documentation portion of it as well on there. And if a supervisor feels a test is warranted and can supply the proper documentation, testing should be done as soon as possible. Supplying that proper documentation, that does not go to the drug collector, it does not go to the collection site either. That is all internal documentation there. So that's for you guys there. So if you don't have it all completely filled out right there, you're still covered as long as you get it to them as quickly as possible. And if you feel an employee is under the influence, got to remember it's important that we do not let them operate a vehicle or machinery. And if they insist, remind them you have an obligation to contact the local authorities on that there. So when it comes to hearsay, we want to listen to everybody that tells us about this, so all concerned parties. That could come from fellow employees, friends, family members, even outside sources like customers or vendors on that there. We want to document that source of that information, and we want to ensure their confidentiality. So we're not going to break their confidentiality on that there. But we're not going to test based upon hearsay alone, but we are going to use that information to start our observation process with them on there. When we're doing that, we don't have to be like in their space. We can do what's called a bird's eye view. You can stand here, like watch, observe from a distance on there. You don't have to be right in their space when that happens. So what if they say they have a reason for their behavior? We got to remember that reasonable suspicion is put in place to harm or to help mitigate harm to all employees on there. This is one of the reasons proper documentation is so important. And regardless if the employee tests positive or not, that unsafe behavior still needs to be addressed and stopped. HR safety can take over from that point there. The outcome of the actual test isn't as important as stopping that unsafe behavior. Never let an employee talk you out of the test for any reason whatsoever on there. Once you start that process, it must be completed. Because we need to rule out drugs and alcohol out of the equation on there. And here's the nice thing, you get to be the good guys or the heroes or the rock star, because you're going to blame the company policy on this here. I'm not going to take it for ourselves. We're going to say, sorry, this is what the policy says I have to do it. I like my job, I want to keep it. We normally try to avoid conflict situations, but with reasonable suspicion, it's more important than ever to de-escalate the word before words even spoken. So watch how you approach a person. Don't go up aggressively. Don't go in a closed body position or anything like that there. Go up in as an approachable manner as possible on there. You want to take that employee to a confidential place with another supervisor. Never discuss your concerns in front of another employee. You can get in some serious trouble on that one there. You're going to focus your words on what you have seen, not what you are assuming, but what you have witnessed there. Discuss the behavior you witnessed and your concern, not only for that employee's safety, but everybody else as well, all their fellow co-workers and everybody else. If you know a family member could throw them in there for little brownie points, that's even better on that. Remind them that per the policy, we must rule out drugs and alcohol. And never accuse someone of being an addict or an alcoholic, especially at that point in time, even jokingly. Don't do that there. You could get in some serious trouble. You don't want to do that there. So here's some signs and symptoms of drug and alcohol abuse on this one here. Once again, we're going to watch for the general behavior signs, breaks and patterns there, like excessive tardiness or increased absenteeism. Absenteeism isn't taking the whole day off. It could be people coming in late or having to leave early that normally do not. You may see a pattern like an employee that starts to call off on Mondays after holidays or paydays. Watch for changes in their appearance. They may start wearing dirty or wrinkled clothing. They may start looking disheveled or neglecting their personal hygiene. And like I said, that to me is a big red flag on the personal hygiene. Watch for physical symptoms like they may start having tremors. Maybe they start shaking, they're staggering when they walk. They may have bloodshot eyes, dilated pupils, maybe some alcohol on their breath, or they're constantly using minced gums to try to mask that smell there. They may have a runny nose, or they start rubbing their nose. They may start sweating, they may have clammy hands, or looking spaced out. Watch for mood changes like they start to withdraw from co-workers. They start behaving paranoid, they become irrational and irritable, they may become argumentative or short-tempered. They start acting inappropriately, they may become obnoxious, loud, or start laughing excessively, and that's if nothing funny being said. They start to avoid people or meetings after lunch or breaks there, another big red flag. Multiple daily trips to the bathroom or running out to the parking lot to their vehicle because they keep forgetting things. Or they may even start running errands during work time or sleeping while they are at work. So when it comes to marijuana, what to look for, and I'm sure you guys have seen some stuff on the street that I haven't seen, so if you know of any, throw it in there. We're going to watch for the slower reaction times, increase in judgment errors there. They start to isolate from their co-workers. A lot of confusion, forgetfulness, unclear thinking. They may have start becoming depressed, being paranoid, or having hallucinations. Reduced productivity, increased absenteeism. They may become restless. They may have loss of memory. Maybe bloodshot eyes, or what's called weed eyes. Dilated pupils, lethargy of speech, apathy and fatigue. Two of the things that I've seen with whether it's drugs or alcohol, number one, if they're have an interest in something, very passionate about something, and all of a sudden they start losing interest in that, something is definitely going on. It may not be drugs or alcohol, it could be something personal or financial, but that's usually a sign something's going on. And the other one's paraphernalia, like rolling papers and pipes on here. One thing that has come to my attention with some of the schools, it's called a one-hitter, is what the kids are calling it now. They can buy it on the Amazon. A kid told me, I got it on my dad's Amazon account. Dad don't even know. It's about the size of a credit card, a little bit thicker there. It's aluminum. It's got a fancy design on the front. They slide that back, put the flour in there. The pipe comes out. They hit it. They close it up. Like he said, I can hit it, put it right in my pocket, and I'll be hot. Oh, very interesting. And what brought this whole thing up was something that was out of the ordinary. He had a cigarette lighter. So I said, when'd you start smoking? I don't smoke. That's all. So you're just a Boy Scout. You're going to be prepared, right? He's not even in the Boy Scouts. I said, so why do you have a lighter if you don't smoke? That brought the whole conversation up. And then that's when he told me about it. He goes, you want me to be honest? I said, yeah. I said, you already know. He said, yep, here's what it is. And he showed it to me and everything. And I said, oh, would you what, go like St. George and a Dragon to get that in Youngstown? He said, no, I got it off Amazon on my dad's account. My dad don't even know about it. Like, So those are very popular with the school, in the schools right now. Hopefully not up here, but hopefully this was an isolated. But he told me that, he said, I could tell you 10 people in here. I said, no, you can't tell me that stuff. I don't need that information. They'll get themselves caught sooner or later. So that's just one of the things I found. And like vapes, very hard. You don't know if it's marijuana in that, or THC in that vape cartridge, or if it's nicotine in that cartridge, especially with the smells they have today. They got a mask, so it's very hard to find there. But I'm a firm believer that if something's out of the ordinary, usually there's a very good reason for it. So some of the physical signs of marijuana use may include red eyes or weed eyes or bloodshot eyes there, droopy eyelids, slurred or delayed speech. They start repeating themselves over and over again, being unusually happy and giggly. They start seeing or hearing things that are not there. They are being incoherent, delayed reaction times, appearing confused, and they have poor coordination. They may sway or stumble or bump into things as they're walking or just even standing there. And then we know that marijuana has a very distinct odor. In most cases, it's just like a cigarette. If it's stale, that means it's previous. If it's fresh, it's recent use. Symptoms of benzodiazepines and barbiturates. Increase in depression, increased mood swings, increased agitation and irritability, decreased anxiety. They may have slurred speech, sluggishness, dizziness, respiratory depression, sleepiness, slowed pulse, slow breathing. They can lead to respiratory arrest. They start having visual problems where things are coming in and out of focus and blurry, or they start seeing things that are no longer there. And no matter how much liquid they consume, they find it hard to, unable to urinate. They have dilated pupils, decreased motor control, poor concentration, lack of coordination. They have loss of interest in their hobbies and endeavors or whatever. Thing about this here is all benzodiazepines and barbiturates, all pill form. So watch for prescription bottles with or without their name on the prescription label. Maybe it's taken off, multiple pills mixed together. They also put them in cigarette cellophane. They wrap them up in foil. They also use little Tupperware Tupperware Rubbermaid small containers there. They put them into small snack pack bags, Ziploc bags there. Then we move on to cocaine and crack cocaine. Reduced or erratic productivity, decreased impulse controls, increased risky decision making, illogical actions and responses, unnatural weight loss, and it's not Jenny Craig Weight Watchers, it's the STEM fast diet as they call them. Increased bursts of energy. They have bloodshot eyes, they're paranoid, they have frequent nasal runs, rapid speech, they can have aggressive behavior. Once again, decreased interest in personal hobbies and endeavors. When they use this pipe there, they have to use what's called chore board, like SOS, that you can't rip it apart, so they got to cut it. So watch for small copper shavings laying around there. Then they have something that they have to push this back and forth to get an additional hit off of it. So watch for something strong enough that they can slide it back and forth there. Watch for burnt spoons, burnt pieces of aluminum foil, Small pieces of cotton could come from a cotton ball, Q-tip, or even cigarette filter. When they're cooking the drugs up in the spoon, they use that as a filtration system before they bring it back or drop back into the needle to inject themselves. So when they set it down, they pick it back up. Sometimes that cotton will fall out. They love to use small pieces of straw. That is their favorite, but they will go to rolled up dollar bills with rolled up pieces of paper there. If it's powder on the bottom and it's white, gray, pink, tan, it's usually from them snorting it. If it's got a red, orangish brown on the bottom there, it's from them inhaling the smoke. They smoke it or cook it on the foil and use that to inhale the smoke there. I think I got everything on that there. There might be others I may have forgotten, but that's the majority of what's around there. With amphetamines and methamphetamines, a drastic decline in their work performance. They're unable to retain any new memories. They can tell you what they did 15 days ago. They really struggle to tell you what they did 15 minutes ago. Illogical actions and responses. Continued decline in fluid, smooth motor functions. Drastic decrease of interest in personal hobbies and endeavors. And all the paraphernalia I told you about, the cocaine and crack cocaine, we're going to throw in Adderall or Vibrant there. That's a pill they have, prescription medication. They use it. They'll crush it up to either snort it, smoke it, or inject it. Unnatural weight loss system, delayed choppy speech. They have dilated pupils, the inability to keep still, twitching and skin picking, which leads to open sores there. Those are because there's so many different chemicals used in the manufacturing process of methamphetamine, and they cause involuntary muscle reactions and spasms. That's why a lot of people start doing this after they do it. It's not intentional they do that, it's just that's an involuntary muscle reaction they have. And it also has them where they start picking their skin. It starts predominantly on their face, but it will migrate to other parts of their body. Then we come to PCP or angel dust. Thank goodness this is not as popular as it was. So it's not commonly used with regular frequency, therefore users don't often show any long-term signs. Repeat use can lead to reduced memory retention. Repeat users have a higher rate of schizophrenic diagnosis later in life, leads to a lot of confusion and delirium, complete detachment from reality, slurred speech, loss of coordination. They can become extremely violent and aggressive. And to my knowledge there, the only thing is it comes in powder and liquid form right there. Then signs and symptoms of the opiates. There's that little piece of cotton I was telling you about on the spoon there. All the same things that for cocaine and methamphetamines and stuff. Now we're going to throw in a pill called Suboxone. It comes in two forms, pill and strip form. The pill, they take it, they'll crush it to smoke it, inject it, or inhale it. They also, and this is something that's not been verified, but I was talking to one of the guys in treatment. They started taking the Suboxone strip, and you can't miss those. Those are like yellow and blue. And they're taking small little slivers out of it, and they're sticking it in their eyeball now. And I looked at him, I said, "You're not concerned about your eyesight?" He said, "Oh my God, the high is so great." I'm like, okay. Makes no sense to me, but that's what he was saying that him and a bunch of his buddies have been doing lately. So sure that may take off. Hopefully it doesn't, but I'm sure that's happened before though. So we want to watch for consistent fatigue and lethargy, lowered motivation, delayed decision making. Once again, they're unable to retain any new memories, drastic decrease in interest in personal hobbies and endeavors, severe constipation, extreme sweating. They have pinpoint or constrictive pupils. They call them dots out on the street. One of many different terms I've heard, I should say. They're nauseous and they have collapsed veins or skin abscesses. And for those that do not know what a skin abscess is, it's an intravenous drug user that misses the vein, shoots into muscle or tissue. Signs and symptoms of alcohol use. Lowered inhibitions, they start doing and saying things they normally would not. and lowering of caution. Combine those two together, you got liquid courage is what it's called. Loss of fine motor coordination, the inability to drive a car or do complex tasks. Slurred speech, they can become too loud or too fast of a speech. Lowered reasoning abilities, weakened balance, loose muscle tone, slower reaction times, staggering walk or the inability to walk, weakened sense of hearing. They have loss of memory, both short and long term, heavy sweating, increased anxiety and restlessness, total mental confusion, a slower pupil response, and the more they drink, the more the pupils become constricted. Glossy appearance to their eyes, blurry or double vision, nauseous and vomiting, and loss of consciousness. If you don't know all the types of alcohol, go walk through Giant Eagle with beer aisle or go through a drive-through. You'll see all kinds of different ones. When they say the eyes have it, this is so true. I love this one here. The lighter color of the eyes, the better it is also. So with constricted pupils or the dots, it's heroin, morphine, oxycodone, fentanyl, methadone, codeine, and hydrocodone. Red eyes, weed eyes, or bloodshot eyes. It's marijuana, cocaine, or crack cocaine, benzodiazepines such as Xanax, and also depressants like alcohol or sedatives. Then you have the dilated pupils, or the saucers as they're called. Amphetamines, methamphetamines, cocaine or crack cocaine, hallucinogens like mushrooms or LSD, opiate prescription painkillers, heroin, marijuana, and speed. And if you're ever curious of somebody and they have dark colored eyes, you can't see their pupils real well, one of the tricks I use is, hey, can you tell me what's in the corner of my eye? I got something down there. So when they're looking for that imaginary thing in the corner of my eye, I'm looking right at their pupils to see. Because the last thing I want to do is escalate a situation. I always want to keep it de-escalated, keep in de-escalation mode, I should say. So here's 10 very simple, easy rules to follow so nobody gets in any trouble whatsoever. Remember, we want to document the heck out of it. The more documentation, the better it is. The more documentation you have, the more transparent you are. We're going to call it what it is. We're not going to say it's random or other. We're going to say this is a reasonable suspicion. It's got to be more than just a hunch, so you do have to articulate first-hand observations that you have witnessed there. It's got to be contemporaneous, meaning those observations occurred just before, during, or right after their work period. Once again, and when we ensure that confidentiality to the person telling us, now we're also going to extend it to the person that we are going to pull aside to do the test with when we talk to them. We don't want to go blabbing it around and everybody else there. It's not a requirement, but it is best practice. If you can get a second supervisor to document their observations, once again, that goes more towards the documentation as well also, and getting a fresh pair of eyes on it. Once that process starts, it must be completed. Don't let them talk you out for any reason whatsoever. And only a trained supervisor can make the determination to request a reasonable suspicion test. Anybody can call and say they need somebody. A trained supervisor should be the one making that determination, though. Remember, we want to de-escalate the situation, so we're going to blame the policy. We're going to watch how we approach them, how we talk to them, the whole 9 yards on that there. And remember, we have to be fair, firm, consistent. What we do for one, we got to do for all. We can't say, oh, you know, I like this guy, I'm going to kind of give him a pass on this here, and then we go up to this, oh, this knucklehead, man, I've been waiting forever to get a hold of him. If we're going to test the knucklehead, we got to test the other one also as well on there. Remember, drug-free policies are literally saving people's lives. Understanding the importance of a drug-free policy, it helps create safer work environments for everybody. Also helps to identify personal problems that can get better with treatment. Trained supervisors get clarification, encourage the use of a one chance, which you already do. You have a second chance policy on there. Have that open door policy, encourage others to do the same. Remember, if you have that there, what's said there stays there, unless obviously they're threatening some type of violence or destruction or anything like that, and you can determine they have the means, motive, and intent. Then you have to tell somebody you have a duty to report on that one there. Have a list of local resources available for employees. You can call me anytime and get that there. Ask questions and definitely become informed on that there. We've got to remember that 75% of that 48.7 million American adults struggling with the substance use disorder are currently employed. You have been given an opportunity to help save lives, either through safer work environments or providing support and pathways to recovery. So it's definitely my hope that you take that opportunity and remember that you can definitely make a difference. You guys already do on that there. So with that being said, are there any questions or comments on that? Well, thank you for your time. I guess I will see you next year also. Thank you.
Thank you.